What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Thursday. Not much happening Packers news-wise, but I thought I'd jump on, see what's on your mind, see what's going on in the minds of Packers fans everywhere. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. My latest podcast just went up, talking a bunch of stuff from the new rules being implemented in the NFL to possibilities for the NFL draft, the Packers' approach to it. Make sure you listen, download, stream it, what have you. Hello to everybody chiming in. North Hudson, what's up, Mike? How are you? Thanks for jumping on. Happy Thursday, Louise. Nice to see you. Preston, Toledo, Ohio. What's up, man? Howdy from Iowa. Hello, Darren. How are you? Good to see everybody. Very, very quiet today, Packers-wise. I couldn't even raise anybody who even tangentially connected to the Packers. So I know they're undoubtedly attending pro days, very busy, but news-wise, not a whole heck of a lot. Will Michael Clark burst onto the scene this year? I would lean towards no. You never really know because we got to see what kind of jump he makes, what kind of off-season work he's done. He's still incredibly raw as a player. He hasn't played a whole lot of wide receiver comparative to his peers. The athletic traits and the athleticism is definitely there. There's no doubt about it. We saw plenty of ample evidence of it throughout training camp last year, and then we saw a little bit of it those last two games of the regular season. But I would tend to doubt it just because of the complexities, not just in the Packers offense, but in the NFL offense in general, where you have to be able to read coverages on the fly and adjust your routes and be in sync with how the quarterback is reading those defenses and those coverages. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot harder than just go run a 15-yard out or go do a jump ball in the corner, which is what Michael Clark's been really good at so far in his young career. But you can never say never because you never know how a guy might attack the job and the light switch might go on. We'll see. I do think he'll be given ample opportunities, and I do think, like I said, he's definitely got the athleticism to state a case. But given how raw he is as a prospect, that would be a big, big jump. So are we all set for the season? Jonathan, I tend to doubt it. I think they'll continue to look at free agency, especially at the cornerback spot, to bring in at least one more player. They'll undoubtedly watch for any possible cuts around the league, salary cap casualties from other teams. After the draft, you have to think teams will start cutting guys who maybe are, duplicate players at positions that they've just drafted at, so they figure they can cut guys loose. Brian Gutekunst mentioned that specifically this week at the league meetings. So the roster is ever changing, and obviously the draft is the biggest driver there, and that will come in late April. But free agency has not stopped. They will still be looking at every avenue. Come at me, bro. Get it, Jonathan? I get it. Curtis, Brad, hello to both of you. Are the Packers not where they wanted to be at the moment? That's a good question. I think only Brian Gutekunst can answer it. I tend to think they're in a pretty good spot. Maybe, perhaps, they would like to have one more corner on that roster, but for the most part, I think they're in good position heading into the draft. Clearly, the draft is going to be key, and that will be a big part of trying to turn this team around. Much more so than the draft class this year, though, will be getting something out of their last two draft classes, 2017, 2016, getting more from them this season. That's, if you're a draft and develop program, that's a big part of it. But I wouldn't say that they're in worse shape than maybe they wanted to be, but it's ever expanding, ever growing, they're ever changing throughout the off season. We'll see what they look like come the start of camp. Did Brian Gutekunst act too slowly in free agency at the cornerback spot? I don't think so. I know that Mark Murphy indicated a couple days ago, he was asked, did the cornerbacks fly off the board a little faster than they thought they were? And he indicated yes. A couple hours later, or maybe the next morning, I think, Gutekunst was asked, and he said no. They were in on everything. They just felt they were kind of overpriced, and they didn't want to get in on some of that. Obviously made the play for Fuller. That didn't work. Again, only they can really, truly, honestly answer that, and I don't know if we'll get a straight answer out of them ever, but I do tend to think they erred on the side of caution when it came to, I know we had heard they might be in on Jermaine Johnson prior to the start of free agency. That never made any sense to me. He was always going to get big-time bucks, and which he did end up getting. And I just never thought the Packers would be in that way. I knew, or I expected, that they would look at some of the mid-level guys, and I think they did. They indicated interest in Rashad Melvin, who ended up with the Raiders on a pretty, digestible deal at 1 year, I think $6 million. So those were the types of signings I always expected them to at least be in on. And getting Tramon Williams back, and they clearly have interest in Bro, those are the types of guys that I kind of expected. Now, I thought they'd be a little quicker on the trigger, so to speak, but I don't really think that anybody expected them to go out and sign a Trumaine Johnson at $16 million per, or $15 million, whatever it was. Or even that Aaron Colvin was somebody like that was even that realistic given their cap constraints. But like I said, only they can really answer that honestly. Do I like Baker Mayfield? Heck yes, I like Baker Mayfield. He's my number one quarterback in this draft, and not that anyone cares how I have people ranked, but to me, if he's 2 inches taller, there's no question he's your QB1 across the land. Everyone's talking about him that way. But for whatever reason, we still haven't learned the lessons of trust the tape and don't worry about the measurements when it comes to guys like that. And I'm not saying he's the next Drew Brees or next Russell Wilson, but I am saying that his tape shows you that he can do everything that any NFL quarterback will ever be asked to do. I love his temperament. I love how fiery he is. I want that guy on the sideline. I want him in the huddle. I love him. I love him as a prospect. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I think his success in the NFL will greatly depend on where he is drafted and what kind of supporting cast he has around him and what kind of coaching he has. But that's true of almost every prospect, so we'll see. I think Tramon Williams will make the secondary better, especially teaching the others how to be pros. I very much agree with that. I think it's an underrated aspect of that signing. I know there's a lot of people in the building really excited to have Tramon back. They are very young at corner, and he will definitely lead the way in that regard. He's a shorter Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to be better than Kirk, Josh, but I hear you there. OBJ never? Yes, you are correct. I don't see that happening. Do we still have Dupree from LSU? No, I think, who did he end up with? I think he ended up with Buffalo last year. How much professional scouting have you done? In all caps, says Eric. Well, I have been paid to scout. So I guess a little. Can Cincy make the jump? I think so. Go White Sox. Tommy, that is an unfortunate comment here on the old Facebook. Matthew just asks, Dez, question mark? If he ends up getting cut, I imagine the Packers would probably make a call, engage interest. I tend to think he'll get some significant interest in free agency, though, if he does end up getting cut. And I think someone's going to pay him a bit of money. There are still teams out there with a lot of cap space, and I can't see the Packers making a move there unless they made a move, some corresponding move with, say, Clay Matthews' contract or Randall Cobb's contract to free up some cap space. I'd be surprised. Who's the number 3 wide receiver in the depth chart? Good question, Kyle. I would say it's probably Geronimo Allison, though it really doesn't matter when you kind of list them as a depth chart because of how they line up. You got Allison on the outside. He's a perimeter player, although he has played in the slot a little bit. But he's going to line up outside, and Devontae Adams is going to be the other guy on the other side on the perimeter, and Cobb's going to play in the slot. That's going to be your top 3, so to speak, as it stands right now. Now, we don't know. Maybe they end up signing Jordan Matthews. Maybe they draft somebody. Who knows? But right now, I think those are the big three, so to speak. And then, obviously throw in Jimmy Graham, who technically isn't listed as a wide receiver, obviously, but for all intents and purposes is a wide receiver. Your decor is very white. Yeah, it most certainly is. Ty Montgomery opposite Adams. I think you'll see Ty Montgomery playing bits of wide receiver, bits of running back. You'll see him split out from the backfield on occasion, no doubt about that. I don't see him being a regular member of the wide receiver rotation, but we'll see. How about Vince Biegel in year 2? He's a great mystery. I know David Bakhtiari had a picture up of him and Kenny Clark and Vince all working out there in California today. He's a great mystery just because we didn't get to see anything from him last year due to that injury, that very first rookie practice. So he is I'm not going to say a big part because I don't think they can count on him much because they don't know what they have yet. They haven't seen him really with a full off-season of preparedness behind him, a full off-season in pads. Clearly he was kind of thrown to the wolves last year. But, new scheme, new coaching staff, get him a full off-season of work, and, let's see what they have there. That's kind of what I was talking about before when I talk about, the draft and develop side of things, and that's what Gutekunst reiterated this week down there at the league meetings. You're going to have these second-year players make a jump, these third-year players make a jump. And Biegel, obviously, what they got last year was pretty much close to nil. So anything they can get out of him is good, but they have got to see what they have there, and they have to hope that he develops into a player that provides a little bit of pass rush and offers them a little flexibility, especially when it comes to how they deploy Clay Matthews. Maximus, no update on any kind of movement on Aaron Rodgers' contract. I said yesterday I expect it to kind of last, maybe not throughout the full summer, but into the summer. He's got no impetus to sign a deal sooner rather than later. I think he'd most likely like to see Matt Ryan sign his deal first. Ryan only has 1 year left. I think Atlanta's probably going to try and get that done this offseason. So Rodgers has every reason to kind of slow play this. So I keep saying I expect it probably before camp, right before camp to get done and announced, but we'll see. Will Reggie Gilbert be given a real chance this year? I really hope so, man. I think it's a bit absurd how he was kind of wasted away on the practice squad all last year, and the Packers went week in and week out without much of a pass rush along the exterior there, exterior pass rush, and Gilbert came in for those 2 weeks and really showed something. He really showed he had some juice, and it was funny because I asked McCarthy at the Combine last month, do you think you've made a mistake there having him on the, a lot plays into that, and, there are lots of talks, because he admitted they had not argued, but they had discussed for weeks about whether to bring him up or not. Well, special teams and who needs this and that and another thing, and all I hear is we played Kyler Fackrell because he was a draft pick. That's all I heard. That was my translation live while he's saying all that. I don't get it. I think he's another player. When you talk about the development of these guys and counting on getting a little something from past draft classes, obviously it wasn't a draft pick, but I think he could definitely give him something, given a proper opportunity. Develop strong rookie tight end behind Jimmy Graham? I think so. I think this is a prime year to go get a guy in the draft. They keep signing. It's the third year in a row they've had to sign a premier tight end in free agency. It's because they haven't really developed anything on their own. Obviously, Richard Rodgers is a solid player, but didn't turn out to be, much of a difference maker other than that one big catch in Detroit. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go and get a tight end in this year's draft class. Any word on the Delvin Breaux visit? Not a thing. Do we possibly trade up in the draft? Yeah, it's possible. I doubt it, but it's possible. Pro Bowl year for Martinez. Rick, if he can limit the missed tackles, because as everyone knows, last year I think he tied for the league in tied for the league lead in tackles, but he also had a boatload of missed tackles. If he can cut out on some of those missed tackles and just close out on some of those interceptions that he dropped last year, yeah, I think he's got a good shot at the Pro Bowl. Hey, hello from Australia. Thanks for tuning in. Why the heck did we let Cook go? It's a great mystery. Sure sounds like the Packers took a hard line when it came to the contract negotiations. I had someone in the building this week tell me that was Russ Ball's doing. And Thompson deferred to him when it came to cap stuff. And I think on the flip side, I think Cook's agent really kind of I don't think was too. Some of my colleagues have said she overplayed her hand. I don't think that was the case. I just think she saw the value that Cook had to that offense and to that organization, and said, okay, well, this is what he's worth, and she wasn't going to take less. And she ended up getting a good deal out there in Oakland. So you can't really say, she didn't do right by her client. I do think it was a bit silly that they let him walk, and I think that's down to Russ Ball. Hello from Cali. What's up, man? Leslie Ann says, Randall Cobb, question mark, is a Packer and probably will remain so for at least one more year. Kenny Vaccaro. Will, I don't see that. It's funny. I know he's a name and people seem to really enjoy bringing him up, but I don't think he's a great option. I think Eric Reed would be a much better option. And I also don't think the Packers view safety as much of a need and something they need to go and get in free agency. I know obviously they've lost Morgan Burnett, but one of the reasons they drafted Josh Jones was because they knew they could probably lose Morgan Burnett this offseason. That, and we got Mike McCarthy talking this week about Kentrell Bryce competing for a starting job. Marwin Evans had an up and down year, but did show ability to play in this league. I don't know. I don't see safety being a spot where they spend free agency dollars, but my podcast is called Nagler's Never Right, so we'll see. Hello from Houston, Texas. What's up, man? Herb Waters. Craig, I'm very excited to see Herb this offseason in the spring program and then training camp when the pads come on. We all know Joe Witt Jr. has talked him up, and Joe has talked a few times about how well he has played in coverage. We just haven't been able to see it. A lot of that has happened behind closed doors. So I'm very anxious to see how he looks. Like I said, he's certainly been talked up. But until I see it on the field against NFL level competition, obviously he's a converted wide receiver. I don't know what to think. Are we counting on anything from Dimitri Goodson? I would tend to doubt it. I know they like him on special teams. It's just funny. He's always kind of seemingly committing penalties on special teams when he's not making a play. They didn't really have much there from scrimmage prior to his injuries. After the injuries, I don't know what they've got. I tend to think that's a player they can move on from pretty easily, but I think they'll exhaust all options before they do so. How long will Rodgers play until he hangs him up? Well, he said he wanted to play until he's 40. I could see him doing it. With a healthy Rodgers, the Packers are still the class of the North. I think they'll be getting a good push there from the Vikings, but we'll see. If given a chance to trade back to obtain Vander Esch and someone like Mike Hughes a better option, I could possibly see that. I don't think it would be for Mike Hughes, but you never know. When it comes to the draft, man, it's impossible to say just because you don't know how they feel about any of these prospects. Any chance for going to long snapper at 14? That's the one spot where I can say I can rule out long snapper at 14. That and punter. AR12 to OBJ13 would be nice to see. I would recommend putting that in your Madden lineup because I don't see it happening in real life. Hello from North Korea. Hope you're enjoying the chat. Player that perhaps we don't know about that makes sense for Green Bay in later rounds would be James. Check back in a couple weeks. I'll have something up on the website about that very thing. Breezy Point, what's up? How are you? You think Jackson at 14 is a reach? You mean Lamar Jackson? The Green Bay Packers? I would be very surprised. I think that's about where his value is pick-wise, but I'd be very surprised if the Packers were the ones to pull the trigger there. Raji on special teams. Very good. Why doesn't Green Bay take chances on issued players? It seems to work so well for New England. Issued players? You mean like players with off-field issues? I mean, they did bring in Corn Robinson. Any chance they bring in Breeland for a visit? It's been all quiet on that front. I know they had reached out and showed interest initially before he signed with Carolina and then failed his physical. But since he did get released, and put back out on the market, I haven't heard anything. Now, I imagine some of that is about him getting healed up. We'll just have to wait and see. What about 52? Funny, I was asked about this on Twitter today. I am a bit surprised that they had not, prior to free agency, extended his contract to try and get that cap number down. You have to think, if there is a spot where they want to get cap space quickly, he is a candidate to get cut because they carry absolutely no dead money if they do so. Now, that said, if you're going to do that, you've got to ensure that you're either able to bring on or you've got someone in the draft that is going to step on the field and contribute right away to improve your defense, because just cutting him to gain cap space doesn't help you a whole lot on the field. And the point is to win football games. Subtracting one of your best defensive players, that doesn't help you. And I get that his cap hit and salary is no longer consummate with his sack total. I totally get that. But he does a lot more than just, rack up sacks of the quarterback. He is a disruptor. He plays all over the place. He causes havoc, and he's a problem for every offensive coordinator in the league. So you still see him getting double teamed on a very regular basis. Offenses have to pay attention to him. Quarterbacks have to know where he is. And like I said, I just can't see just straight up cutting him to, great, we've got, $10 million worth of cap space, but our defense is worse. So maybe we go sign a corner, but if they were going to do that, I would have assumed they would have done it at the start of free agency. Now all those corners are off the board. So the ones that would have cost $10 million. So, yeah, it is a bit funny to me that they didn't do anything there, but clearly, as of now, they are comfortable with what his cap hit is going into 2018. All right, everybody, I'm going to jump. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. I'll be back tomorrow, unless there's some breaking news tonight. In the meantime, make sure you check PackersNews.com. Like I said at the top, my new podcast just dropped. Make sure you check that out, including, make sure you check out everything at PackersNews.com. If it's happening in or around Green Bay with the Packers, we'll be on top of it. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow.